Time for a Paul's Garage reboot. I don't mean I'm rebooting the channel, I mean this garage, the garage itself, needs a reboot. Take a look. This is basically a nightmare. I can't really clean up because everything around it is a major nightmare, which ain't great. There's this car in the way of everything. Hard to walk around, remnants from various parties, leftover cake from a 3-year-old's birthday party, and I can't move the car because of all this crap behind it. I'm basically totally boxed in here. So I'm going to clean this up, and while I'm doing that, VoiceOver Me is going to respond to some of your comments. Okay, it's VoiceOver Me's time. Now I'm in control. Wait, no. Editing Me is in control. Well, at any rate, I'm going to go through some of your comments and talk about them. Some of them are questions, some of them are just comments that I want to ramble about for a minute. I'm going to start with some casting questions because that seems to be mostly what I get. First off, a couple of comments about the lathe. One about making it with cast iron, another about why is the bed hollow and not solid. Solid would make it heavier, probably make it more vibration resistant too, but it would take an insane amount of metal. Also, when you have a casting that's that thick, you end up with issues like the surface of it cooling and the whole thing starting to shrink while the inside of the giant casting is still molten. That can cause some issues, maybe not so much with aluminum, but it can be a problem. Cast iron, on the other hand, most lathes are made out of cast iron because it's very heavy. It's also vibration resistant. It dampens vibration. Aluminum does not, but it would require an insane amount of heat, and most people in a home foundry situation cannot do cast iron. My setup can do cast iron, but last time I did it, I nearly lost half my face. So I'm kind of hesitant to try it some more. But if you could, I mean, it would be pretty sweet to make one of them in cast iron, that is for sure. Another question. Do you like using Petrobond over other sands? No idea. I have never once used anything other than Petrobond. It's the first thing I got, it worked, so I kept using it. Maybe eventually I will try other stuff. I did get some fine play sand. I also got a bunch of powdered bentonite. You use bentonite clay with the sand and water to make just a basic green sand, and bentonite is like cat litter or oil dry is a lot of bentonite clay, but then you got to grind it up. And pro tip, find a pottery supply place. Powdered bentonite is available cheaply because they use it to mix in with stuff like glazes and other whatever. But they just sell it like by the pound, and it's really fine powder, so you don't have to do any work. You do need a muller, though, to mix them up well. Next question. I thought you were supposed to fill it with borax. This is in response to a crucible tempering one. And indeed, some people say fill it with borax or boric acid, which I think is roach killer. Chirpy will correct me if I'm wrong. I have strayed away from that. In my experience, borax destroys crucibles, and they seem to work okay if you just do the heat tempering thing. Similar follow-up. How many pores do you think you get out of the crucible? Far more from the ones I have never used borax in. In fact, I've only completely used up and ruined one crucible total, and it was one that saw a lot of borax use. It also saw a lot of heat. It seems like I bet if you just did zinc or aluminum, a good solid graphite clay crucible, which I get from a company called PMC Supplies, a good crucible like that, doing a low melting metal like aluminum, I don't think you're ever going to wear the thing out unless you drop it. Copper temperatures kind of leach out some of the glassiness, and it seems like iron temperatures just straight up destroy literally everything. So it kind of depends what you're going to melt. If you're going to melt aluminum, probably a whole bunch of pores. Like, it's definitely worth it to invest in a good crucible. Higher temperature stuff, you have to invest in a good crucible, because you can't melt cast iron in a steel crucible. You're going to have a bad day. Next is about metal specifically. Can you cast 7075 aluminum? And another, try titanium, please. I get these kind of comments a lot. Titanium melts too hot, and basically any metal that I haven't done, unless it's an alloy of a metal that I've done, like aluminum or copper, I'm probably not going to do. Like, there's so many bronzes you can try, which are going to be great. Titanium requires a lot of heat. Magnesium causes quite a firestorm if you try melting it where it can reach any oxygen. And I think titanium also is progressively oxidizes when it's molten, so you need like special atmospheres. Basically, if it's not an aluminum or copper or iron kind of alloy or colder, I'm probably not going to do it. I don't think I could melt anything that melts hotter than iron anyway. Can you cast 7075 aluminum? Yeah, probably. There are a lot of different forms of aluminum, a lot of different aluminum alloys. Generally, the number, that 4-digit number, the first number tells you what the main alloying ingredient is. A simple Googling shows the 7000 series are alloyed with zinc, primarily zinc. So, I mean, you can cast zinc pretty well. I imagine a zinc alloy of aluminum will cast pretty well. Most casting alloys in general tend to be high in silicon. Just something to keep in mind. But yeah, you can melt like any aluminum alloy. It's whether or not it'll flow well into a mold, how much shrinkage you're going to get, if you're going to get any hot tearing, which is a casting defect. You know, those are more the concerns. Like, if general rule, if you don't know, if it is aluminum, make sure it's not magnesium or whatever. But if it's aluminum, if it was cast when you got it, it's probably a good alloy for casting. If it's not cast, if it's extruded, probably not a good alloy for casting. It's probably a good alloy for extruding. But I'm not a metallurgist, so I wouldn't trust too much of what I say. Next comment. In regard to my recent video where I forged some simple tools, I used a plumber's torch, a claw hammer, and an anvil, which was actually a vise. Even though I have a forge, I have a casting hammer, I have like a railroad track anvil, I have the whole setup, but I wanted to see if I could do it with just standard tools that you would find in like a garage. This guy says, disgraceful behavior using a woodworking hammer for blacksmithing. Disgusting. Yeah, I know. That is a fair criticism. I'm sorry. And even worse, I put that kind of filth on the internet where people's children can see. It's terrible. I'm very sorry. I formally apologize, and I beg your forgiveness. Next comment in regards to a live stream I had with my wife. Gratuitous use of Pretty Lady to boost ratings. Well done. Yes, you caught on. She's been in many other videos previously. Well, not many, but some. And she definitely adds to the attractiveness of the videos. You go on to say you both are so attractive, I want to see the babies. If you think she's attractive, you're right. If you think I'm attractive, you need glasses. Just gonna say that. Next comment. I think Paul lost weight. Yeah. From the very first video to now, probably videos for the last 6 months to a year, I lost about 60 pounds. I after losing the 60 pounds, I just kind of plateaued where I am now for the last many months, and I haven't tried to lose any more. So I'm just kind of sitting where I am now. But yes, indeed, lost weight. Did so in the standard way that people say doesn't work. I had stopped eating garbage food. Exercise didn't do it. Trying to cut back on soda didn't do it. No, I cut out soda, and I cut out a bunch of other crap food. And when I started eating healthy food, and a normal amount of it, not a ridiculous amount of it, the weight just fell off. It's pretty crazy. You know, who figured eating healthy food in like normal amounts would work? But it did. Turns out all those people who said that are right. Next up, this isn't so much a comment, it's more of a link. Someone posted a link to the respirator that I use. It's the yellow respirator thing with the filters on the back of my head. A lot of people comment about it. The reason that I use that respirator, I've mentioned this before, is because it seals around your mouth with like a scuba mouthpiece, like a scuba diver mouthpiece. It's not something that clamps on your face. So the ones that clamp on your face don't work so well if you got a beard, which I sometimes do. Crap can just get around the mask, or they get around between your nose bridge and your cheeks, that little gap on a lot of other respirators. And I have a very big nose bridge, big honking nose, so I can't wear those and get a good seal. It will still bypass around the edges, around my nose, and into my lungs. So I wear the respirator because it seals around my mouth like a scuba mouthpiece, so it can hold pressurized air underwater. So it's pretty good. Next comment. Paul, have you shared the STL files for the pattern and core anywhere? This was posted on the aluminum bronze hammer video. And yes I do. It's on myminifactory.com. If you find me on there. I've posted a bunch. I think pretty much anything that I modeled, including the sand rammer and a couple other things. Any 3D prints that I made that I used in some videos somewhere is uploaded on my Mini Factory, so you can find them there, and they're free. Next up, P.S. Where did you get your beware of ... sign? I think I got it at Hobby Lobby. They have a bunch of like cool, ironic kind of shop signs that are kind of corny, and that's where I got it. There are some other ones. Next up, where in Wisconsin are you guys? And another comment about the insane cold winter we had last year. Yes, I am in southern Wisconsin, so not as cold as some of it. And I did film during the negative 55 wind chill week. I did. I ran in a very earlier video, like 2 winters ago maybe. I made a garage heater out of a drying, like a clothes dryer heating element and a floor fan and some ductwork. And I utilized that heavily during that week. Kept my garage above freezing. I think running it non-stop 24 hours a day kept it about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which was, it was comfortable. But man, was that cold. Negative 55 wind chill. That was just insane. Next question, where in upstate New York did you live? I lived in Binghamton, New York. Well, I didn't live in Binghamton. I lived in the area around Binghamton, because there's like a whole bunch of little towns and cities and whatever, and I can't tell where one started and one began, and I was in one of them, in the greater area known as Binghamton. Next up, hey, I like that white cup-based thingy. Did you find any rupees in any of those pots? This is in response to a video recently where I smashed a bunch of pottery. Believe it or not, smashing pottery is a thing. Like, people who make it have a bunch of stuff they don't like. Sometimes they try to fix it, sometimes they just smash it in a pile. I noticed when I was in Korea a few months ago, when we visited a couple of places where they make a whole bunch of pottery, next to the gigantic kilns, and I mean like, you could park a car in these things, they're huge. Next to the giant kilns were giant mounds of smashed stuff. Like, they pull it out of the kiln, look it over. If it looks good, that's great. If it looks bad, they smash it with a hammer right there and throw it in the pile. And for the Legend of Zelda reference, there was actually a pottery channel called Earth Nation Ceramics, a YouTube channel. It's a good channel if you want to learn how to like make stuff. And he had a video where him and a bunch of his potter friends did something called Link Day, where they brought all the crap they didn't like together and smashed it in a bucket with hammers. To my knowledge, they did not find any rupees. And if you like, I'm sorry if I've destroyed something that you liked, but I wasn't gonna keep those things. That crap just piles up. And that was like early stuff. That was really bad. I make a lot of better stuff now. I actually have a Instagram account, not the Paul's Garage one, but a different one where I post pottery that I make. And one viewer has found it. I didn't tell them about it, but they found it. Only one. I'm going to go ahead and not tell you what it is and see if more people find it. That sounds like a fun experiment. Next up, you're kind of a knob, but very entertaining. I get the gist. I appreciate that you don't confuse a novice with all kinds of technical terms. That's A+, so thank ... Believe it or not, that is intentional. I intentionally do not try to use technical terms. I try to do everything in layman speak, in part because that's how I think, because I am not an expert, but also because I had a professor once in grad school. I studied historical archaeology and anthropology, and I had a professor who said something very profound that I liked very much. If you cannot explain something in simple English that anyone can understand, then you do not understand it. There's a trick that some people do. They write and they speak in very complex sentences using very fancy, complex language. They can use special vocabulary, words that only they know and other people in the know would know. And they do this sometimes to confuse other people. Because if they can confuse you, they can make you think that they are smarter than you, when in fact they don't know what they're talking about. Like, they might know what they're talking about and they're trying to confuse you to feel superior. They might not know what they're talking about, so they're trying to confuse you so you think they're smart and you don't realize that they don't know what they're talking about. So if you can explain something simply in simple words like stuff and junk and this crap, maybe that's not a great example, But if, like, I was talking about 3D printing with someone, and SLA 3D printing, it uses, like, I said, a plastic goop, and it shines light on it, and the light hardens the goop into the plastic thing. And it's not called plastic goop. It's called a photopolymer, or something like that. And SLA is stereolithography, so it uses multiple sources of light focusing on a specific point in the photopolymer to harden it from the goop, the liquid, into hard plastic. That's how it works. And I said, light-sensitive, liquid plastic goop. And the people who don't know what photopolymer is understood plastic goop. That's why I use simple terms. Also, just for the record, if you want professional information, YouTube is not the place for it. Go to a tech school or something. Another comment. I meant this not to be perfect. The mantra of my life. Yes, that is a very good mantra of life. For me, it's just an excuse of why something didn't turn out real good. But there are actually schools of thought that use imperfection as like a superior character trait of something. So, going back to the smashing pottery thing, you might think the fanciest pottery would be like the most expensive stuff is like flawless. Like, oh, it's gotta be, if you buy a bowl and it costs $3,000, that better be like micrometer perfect, right? No, it's usually half collapsed and kind of cruddy looking because the guy who made it didn't want it to be perfect. If you want flawless, repeatable perfection, go to Walmart and buy something for 50 cents made in a factory. The imperfect things that are handmade and come out unexpectedly great, that's where the big money is. Look up Japanese tea bowls. You'll see what I mean. They're not made to be perfect. I saw one video where a guy made one. It looked pretty decent, but, you know, not symmetrical, but it looked really nice. He took it off the thing, set it on a board, and then he just deformed the crap out of it with his hands. He probably sold that for $1,000. Perfection might be perfect, but it's not ideal. Imperfection, I think, is more interesting. That's why I would much prefer driving a crappy car a long ways than driving a brand new one. The crappy one might break down. I might suddenly have to figure out where all the antifreeze went and what's on fire, what's making that smell, but that's more fun. Imperfection, more excitement. Find me one person out there who's interesting, who's perfect. Trick question, no one's perfect. But the most imperfect people are sometimes the most interesting. Next question, final comment. He talks so much. You must be new here. I hope you enjoyed this video of me talking so much. Tune in next week where I'll maybe use this garage that I've just now picked up. So that'll be fun. Thanks for watching. Still a lot to go. But I can get to that shelf now, which is nice.